Today is a des- today is a product designer with 7 years of experience crafting digital products for businesses. He has won different ads serving as a UIX designer at Creed Digital, design director at Red Bull Media, and later on as a product design lead at RiseVest. Today has a knack for turning even the most complex ideas and requirements into user-friendly solutions. Currently, is the head of product design at Kuda, a neon bank revolutionizing mobile banking. Kuda app is your go-to for smart spending and saving right on your smartphone. So with our emojis, can we please welcome today to today's call? Hi today.
Hi everyone, good to be here.
Hi, good to be here. So if you don't mind, please can you turn on your camera before you start your session?
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
All right,
Hi.
awesome. Hi today. Good to have you here on this call today. So you have the floor. You can go ahead and start.
Okay, I'll just share my screen. 1 second. Uh, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right. Once again, thanks for having me. My name is Tunde Mason. As she said, as Esther said, I lead product design at Kuda right now. And yeah, I mean, a lot of my work wouldn't be possible without um, product managers. So I'm glad to be contributing to your community. I'm assuming everyone here is a product manager or wants to be a product manager. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. We have a couple of questions. So, like, are we going to be taking questions during the session or will it be after?
What we can do is to take the questions after. But if you feel like you are comfortable with answering the questions during your session, then that's also fine. So it's still to your discretion.
Okay. I think I would prefer to take the questions after.
All
Um,
right. So if you have any question during today's session, what you can just do is to drop it in the chat box or raise your hand after a session so you could answer them. Thank you very much.
thanks. Thanks a lot. Okay. So, yeah, just to get started. A bit of background. Well, for success or product success, like we all have to work in teams. And teams typically consist of the product manager, maybe like obviously management. Uh, you have your developers, you have designers, we may have other supplementary people like legal compliance, we have operations, things like that. But for this particular webinar, we're talking about product managers and designers. So a bit of background, like in my early days working as a product designer, I worked in very, very small teams. Um, and I didn't really understand the concept of a product manager. I think then I mostly worked with project managers, and they mostly focused on the business side of things and not really like basically did like a part of what product managers do these days, which is mostly focusing on like client relations because it was an agency and we had like clients that we worked with. Um, and then I was essentially doing product management work myself, so to speak. Like I would be the one that have to plan. There was nothing like I think there was nothing like priorities that time. It was just what the client sent via email, and it was up to me to like figure out what to do from there. and yeah, it wasn't great. Um, and I went from that experience to working with product managers, very young product managers, and it was better because you had someone who would like take an idea and like flesh it out into something structured and give you a designer a bit more freedom to work on, focus on the actual problem at hand. And it was good, but then you realize that it can be better because sometimes the PMs focus on maybe not the right things or the things that may not really benefit the team as a whole. They may focus on just their own aspect of the job. Um, but at the same time, I also worked with good PMs, and I can tell you that there's a huge difference between working with a good PM and a not so good PM. Um, and that difference is in their relationship with me, the designer, or with the design team in general. So yeah, uh, so what I can say for this to get started is obviously like a good communication is like the best way to have a great relationship with your designers or designers you work with. Um, but it's a thing people generally struggle with that I've noticed, and it takes a lot for for people to like break that mold when there's like a communication gap, because depending on the pace of the organization or like how open the person is to change, or even if the company cares about design, it may just be a thing of, oh, we list out all these things and you give this designer just say go and do it, and there's no synergy, so to speak. And yeah, that gap exists, and like it causes a lot of problems that you may not immediately notice when you start, or when during the product development process. Um, so from my experience, or from what I've seen, product managers and designers don't always work well together. They work in silos. Like for example, designer will be in their own world on Figma doing what they think is the best thing for the product, and the PM is in Notion or whatever documentation software they're using. They're speaking with like the whoever their own manager is, trying to get understand what's the ask is for that particular product or project, or they're going from either that their own manager to developers, and they are sometimes mostly on the side of the developers because, well, developers, and that can lead to like let's say a suboptimal experience for whoever ends up using the final product, which may not be apparent at first because you may have like or you have a timeline you have to launch, you have a deadline, and you just focus on that and do the bare minimum to get the thing over the line. But like things can always be better. You can always do things better. Uh, and yeah, these are like the things that I've observed from my time working with, well, in situations that were not like the best for product management or between product managers and designers. And yeah, all these things can end up leading to like a suboptimal product, like I've said. And it may meet the user's needs to an extent, but it's easy to get easy to like achieve like the first, will I say, 80% of a product. But what really makes you stand out, as a consumer serving thing or as a user focused thing, is usually like that last 90 or it's something percent, and a lot of the time it comes from small things like user experience. Um, and yeah, if you're not communicating with designers, that that can obviously lead to delays because you may have designers, you may start spotting things, problems later on in the process, or much later than you would have figured out if you had been involved from the start. Um, and obviously the product that comes out may not be the best. It may work, but it may not like be the most let's say innovative or user friendly, or it may not like really move the needle as you may want, or as the general organization may want. Um, Obviously, quality may not be the best. And there are also like other things, but this is not an exhaustive list, but this is a summary of the problems that you can, or the impacts this lack or this gap in communication can cause when it comes to product development. So how can we fix these issues? How can you create better synergy between product designers and product managers? So to get started, I mean, I think a common way or a common method of understanding people that you work with or working better with anyone, or even in friendships and relationships, you need to empathize, you need to understand where they're coming from. Um, so in this particular scenario, you as a product manager, you need to understand design as much as you can. I'm not saying you should become a designer. You don't have to become a designer. Not everyone is like visually attuned. Not everyone is. Not everyone has those sensibilities. Not everyone has those tastes, which is fine. But you can build the appreciation with some efforts. Um, and it's also largely dependent on the organization you find yourself in. Like it may be side project with you and your friends, or it may be like your day job that's paying your salary every month. And it also is very, very, very context dependent. In some organizations, like it's easier to you may enter a place where it's already very, very design focused, and there's a very, very heavy um interest, or heavy what's the word now, basically design like is a huge part of how things are done there, which will make things easier for you. But in some scenarios, like from my experience and from what I've heard from my friends in the industry, some people just tell you, you know what, we have this thing we're doing, this is what we've told our investors, these are timelines we've given them, we need this out by these dates. And the PM is just there to give you instructions on what to do. Um, which it can work, but obviously it's not the best. So yeah, you need to try and understand design, understand like how to communicate with users, empathize with users, understand how designers themselves work, or designer maybe one, maybe two. Um, Learn what their processes are. Every designer, every team has like there's a generally accepted or generally accepted standard flow for product design. You start from define the problem to research. Then you like work on ideas, you iterate on those ideas, then you test those ideas, and then you iterate over and over again until you get something that works. It can vary per company or per designer or per product or per context or scenario, but that's the general let's say approach. So you need to understand how they do it and understand why they do it. Uh, and then once you have the understanding with them, you try and integrate those let's say those steps into your own flow or your own workflow as a product manager. Um, so if, for example, you enter the organization and you're like, okay, and they tell you this is how we do things, and you notice that in that flow, after you speak with your product designer, there's some things that don't align. You then go back and say, you know what? I mean, you may not have the power to do it. You can start by doing things how it's done in the company first. Let them trust you with that you can get the job done first, and then start slowly implementing those things as you've learned from design. So if they just say, you know what, this is the idea, give it to designer, give me a screen in 2 days or 3 days, and send the screen straight to dev. That's not great, obviously. You have to now go and take like the user research aspects, put it at the start of your own plan, make sure it's part of your PRD, part of everything, and then involve, try and like punctuate every part of your workflow with things that involve design that will eventually improve the end product that you're going to get. So there's be an overlap. Let it be that you can't exist or you can't do anything without design, and make that apparent in your meetings, in your one-on-ones, in your syncs with developers, that this thing. Okay, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Front end guy, Mr. Back end guy, but I need to run this through design first. Let them work on something before we move forward. Um, and yeah, and at the end of the day, is everyone is going to be better for it, because when you find, let's say, it's very very easy to find like faults in something when you are working with someone who understands the users or the perspective of the users, um without even going as far as building it, because that will eventually even save development costs. Because if you go and end up building the wrong thing because oga said we must do it, if you have someone who understands the users better than Oga, because Oga may understand the users, but he is coming from one perspective. But if he doesn't have like the full context and it's just giving you straight directions, it may end up, impacting, it will end up impacting the final product. So yeah, obviously all this can happen if you're not collaborating very, very well with design. And it goes beyond, you know, having just like the one call or the one sync at the start of the project, or just doing your daily stand-up, because it's very easy to get sucked into like processes and just ticking boxes, because okay, you have daily stand-up or you have weekly stand-up or you have your sprint reviews where design presents this thing and yada yada, and they're just doing the thing, and everybody's happy, so to speak. But there has to be like a deeper, you and your designer need to become best friends, so to speak. You need to understand how they're working, because I already said that. But like, there needs to be something. They need to see you as a sounding board. When you're writing your PRD, starts like it helps if when an idea comes, or when you're planning or whatever, involve design from the start. Even before you have like a full idea of what you're doing, involve them from the start. Um, and that's what like I'll say it means to have like an open communication channel, because having the structured meetings works is fine, it's good. But like you have to have something also unstructured that makes them feel like they are part of the process. And you should allow them explore. So when they say, okay, let's say uh, we want to we have a new payment system. I want people can pay for food with their elbow. So when the idea comes from wherever it comes from, whether it's Oga or even you as a PM, you think about that thing. You can have a concept in your head too, about how it works, but also share it to your designers, so they will also have context, because worked on they have design context for the organization as a whole, so they can go off and work on like an idea or a concept based on that one sentence that you have. And by the time you're done with the PRD, or even while you're writing, you can be evolving them. And by the time you're done with the PRD, you both have something, and that may even end up shortening the time to get into production because you both started working on something as quickly as possible. And that's because there's already like an open line of communication, and you both understand each other. Um, so yeah, that's like involving design team in the product development process. And then, there are many ways you can express those ideas because you work in like work in a largely remote world now. So you can use anything to, drop your ideas. You can collaborate on Figma. In my own experience, I would say when I first joined Kuda, everyone had access to Figma. So it was not just design. But I think then Figma was free for like starter teams or something. I could add. I think when we even first started, I was using out the file, and it was just like my personal domain, and I could add people to edit it. It's not like how it is now. But yeah, like everyone could edit, but like as the team grew, things had to change. Like it was easier at that time because it was just me and like one PM and like two developers. So the PM then would enter Figma and like do some wireframes about this idea that he has. And I'll be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Now take the idea and flesh it out. And like another important thing I think I forgot to mention was that collaboration of design will also help you um because designers will have when you're writing your period, because my writing working on more than one thing at a time. I'm writing an idea for this thing that you know should work. But the thing is, what another thing designers do is they don't really think about what happens when that thing works. You think about what happens when it fails. So if you say, okay, I'm doing this transaction with my with my shoe, designer will now look at the thing that you said and say, okay, what if the shoe is not your size? What if the shoe is leaking? What if um the floor is hot? So like all those edge cases, they're really important, and designers always think about those things. Well, the good designers always think about those things. When I read parodies, most of the time what happens is the person has written the happy scenario, the ideal use case. Well, I want to buy this thing. I have I have a balance. I can purchase it. I can complete the transaction, and I can pay the fee, and everything just happens the right way. But when it enters the design process, you now start thinking about what if this thing fails? What are the bad things that could happen? And that's the power of collaboration. Um, but yeah, when it comes to like work synchronizing within tools or synchronizing tools or using collaboration tools, so to speak, it helps when you can use the same software to communicate. It doesn't have to be the same thing, but like when you have like a similar, let's say, language, and you can easily communicate ideas. It can be them entering Figma, it can be them using FigJam, it can be them using Miro, it can be anything. Because I work with PMs that do all kinds of things. When people enter Figma, even I think I eventually had to remove the access from Figma because sometimes some screens will disappear for some reason, or someone will delete something by mistake or whatever. So I had to stop that. So I removed the edit access for PMs. Um, but what they started doing was they would share ideas in different ways. They would draw things on paper and like take the picture and send it to me on Slack, or anything. It can come from anywhere because they can just be at home one day, or maybe they're in church, or they're in a party and their day just enters their head and like, oh, Tunde, what if we did this? And they draw it on tissue paper and send it to me. And then I put it on when I'm designing a film, I now copy the image and put it on the thing and look at it and like, okay. this actually makes sense. You are cooking. But yeah, it's very, very important to like have that kind of rapport with your designer, so they won't feel you don't feel like you are, uh let's say exploiting them, or it doesn't feel like it's a transactional relationship. Let them feel like your friend, something like a friend, because they're both working together, you both have the same goals, and that's the success of the product. Um and yeah, to get the most out of a designer, obviously, because everyone has different work styles, work patterns. Everyone has different the way you communicate with the designer, not the same way you communicate with the developer. Developers are usually a lot more, they're they're more practical. They are usually they usually don't want things to change, especially back end. Like if something already works, they're like, we can't change this, we can't change this API. It has gone. Like, well, then let's move on. Let's focus on something else. Yeah, backing guys are very, very rigid when it comes to making changes, which should not be. It shouldn't be. I mean, that's how it typically is, but like it's not ideal. But with designers are usually a bit more flexible when it comes to making changes, because that's like essentially that's like part of our job, because our well, we are building for people, and people always have opinions and ideas, and like they're very finicky. Apart from that, you are designing for not just for users, you're also designing for your business. So your business also has to benefit from what you're doing. So you're making changes that help your business, and also making changes that help the users, or like the customers of the business. So yeah, those let's say two um stakeholders may be at odds sometimes, and it's up to us to like balance things out. Um, but you are the middleman. The PM is the middleman in that let's say transaction, and it's up to you to like maintain that balance. Um, so one way to keep the boat floating is always providing context. So when you have an idea, or when you need to make an update or make a quick change to something, it always helps to like give people context. Every decision that affects design must come from a place of we need to know why we're making that change. And this is also kind of a let's say a thing designers should be aware of. When I can speak for myself and like people that I work with. But like when someone asks me to make a change, or like to fix something, or to change this thing, or take this thing out, I always ask why. If I don't ask why, then what am I doing? Who is this for? Why are we making this change? I mean, there always be reasons, but like I want to know why. So by the time this thing comes back and bites us in the ass, um I'll be there with like, I told you we shouldn't change this thing, things like that. So I always need to know why. And like that knowing why will also help us. It helps everyone, because when things don't work, you can easily pinpoint where the issue is, you know. So yeah, always share context. Make sure they know why they're doing things, or why they need to do something. Um Apart from that, you also need to trust your designers. um I work with PMs that consider their PRDs as law. Um, and none of those relationships ended well. Like not even saying that the person left the company. The thing that they're working on, either it will launch, or to launch and to fail, like woefully. Like if you don't allow people, like you can do some things and now say, okay, this particular one, you must go follow it word for word. That doesn't really help anyone in the long run. Because the you as the PM, most times, like in most scenarios, the PM is more or less like the voice of the business, which shouldn't be. I mean, some PMs are very, very user experience focused, which is great. Love working with those guys. But like some people that are very, very business oriented, which also makes sense because obviously if business doesn't exist, we don't have a job. But then it shouldn't be so shoehorned into the business that you now forget who you're actually serving that actually brings in money for the business. So you need to trust designers because they are coming from the user's end. Um, Designers come from the user's end. They have context in design of the products if they have been in the thing for a while for that particular product. They'll be able to share things that you may not have seen because so I would say most of the time PMs are usually a lot more focused in so for example now I would say let me use Kuda as an example. At Kuda now we have Kuda is a banking app. And in every banking app, you have your normal accounts where you spend money from. You have your savings account, you have loans, then you may have investments. So for each of those verticals, there's a PM that works on it. And sometimes those PMs, those 3 or 4 PMs, they may not communicate with each other. And yeah, they may not communicate with each other. And but the designer may have worked on everything or on all those things, or at least have more context than everyone because they've seen all those things. Like they worked on each one, or they have like they've touched it at some point, or they even just play around with the app, so they know how everything connects. They have a better idea of how the experience works holistically than the PM. The PM is thinking about their own products most times, which shouldn't be the case. But this is like what I've generally observed. So you're working on your own thing, but then you have to understand that designers have context that you may have missed because they work typically in like let's say mid to large organizations. You have design systems, and designers have to familiarize themselves with those design systems. And when you have a design system, everything is connected, and you can see how each one works together. Each one connects to make everything or the entire experience flow um, seamlessly. So you need to trust them to make some decisions that you may not understand why they're making those decisions. But yeah, long story short, trust them when they're making some changes you may not get. Always you have to ask why they're making those changes. And then if you have a good rapport, then it'll be easier for you to trust them and vice versa. And then it shouldn't be a case of when one design is done and you just share with the developers and that's the end. Uh, that's not really how it works because sometimes we may come up with something and it seems like it makes sense at the time because of maybe timelines or whatever. But like we may get some new context from maybe a meeting or like a Slack message or even just an idea and we have to change. Um, and it shouldn't be a case of okay, it's one and done. No, because the thing may eventually get tested or go out to customers and customers say I don't like this thing. So in your entire process, there should be room for or space or in your sprints to say, okay, this thing is going out to customers. Um, but we should have a period where we're allowed to make some changes based on their feedback before we can say this thing is fully done and dusted and can watch something else. Um, but yeah, things should always be refined because and those those ideas for refinements shouldn't just come from design. You shouldn't leave that to design. You should constantly go back to your product and look at it and say, how can this thing be better? If you have if you have tracking installed on your app on your products, you should be looking at the numbers, look at how the thing is done. In an ideal scenario, when you launch your product, you should have more than one version out. You should A/B test, and depending on which one performs better, you now decide on which one to drop and which one to go ahead with. Or maybe you can even combine both at the end. Um, so yeah, that's one another way to encourage iteration. That is not that's the thing that happens in more mature companies. But it's a thing to start working that you can start working towards now, even as a young PM. Because it shows that you think you're thinking about the big picture, you know. Um, but yeah, uh, is there anything else? Yeah, I mean, uh, I would say in summary, I would say getting the best out of designers is basically an exercise in communication. That's like the one. If I can summarize this entire the answer to this question in one word, to be communication. I mean, it's a thing that has been beaten over the head, like a flogging a dead horse for like it's also something that gets ignored a lot. Um, like it takes a while. It takes a while. Like it's a lot of things in when it comes to executing. A lot of things sound simple in concept or in theory, but it takes a lot of intentional work because people are different. You encounter different kinds of personalities. You yourself may not be the most outspoken person. Maybe designers in your team are not like very open to communication. So there'll be some pushback. It's usually a very delicate process because you're dealing with people that have emotions and um basically management is challenging and I understand that. I appreciate that. And I empathize with PMs that try their best to, you know, see things from my perspective as a designer. And and even on my team, because I did a team of about 12 designers. So I work with PM sometimes. Like I mostly manage designers, but um I see how sometimes I have to come in to their projects to understand when they're having issues with PMs and trying to like iron things out. Um so it's a very delicate thing, and if things only really work when each person is open to like new ideas and communication and things like that. So yeah, long story short, communicate. Thank you. So yeah, any questions?
Wow. Thank you very much today for that session. That was like very insightful. I'm a bit in and not quite sure like what's happening. Um, okay. Yeah, so we have a question here in the box from Tommy. I didn't take every question. So, you can read out Tom's question. So, Tom says, how would you recommend a scenario like this is handled? First, situation of design has been completed, and developers are currently working on a mobile app, but they face a constraint that requires a small change to the design flow that can be made on the engineering side without reversing the design. Do you think that updates should be made during the engineering standard, or they should always prepare for the design team for anything that you are changes?
Sorry, I think you're breaking. I can't really hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, is this question on the chat?
Yes, yes, chatbot.
Okay. How would you recommend?
Giving
Okay, so for this particular scenario, um, me, I would usually do design of the designer. Sha. Let me just put that one out there. Um, so, but what I know maybe the issue is bandwidth. So developers may not have like the bandwidth to make that change at the time. Um, but you should always defer to the design team when it comes to things like this, because the developers will have their own ideas, or they may have some. I've been in scenarios where there's an issue and there's some kind of constraint. This particular scenario, and the developer ends up making the change on their own without consulting design. And then I open the app and I see one icon that I have that is not on my file, is not on design system. Yeah, no. They should always refer to design, go back to design and tell them, look, this is the thing that's going on. We have this, we've encountered this roadblock and we need a change. It should be fast, should be a quick thing. So please help us make that change and come back to it. As always, communication. Let them, they should know what's going on. Tell them what's going on, why we can't do this, or why we should do this, and then they'll give you what you need. Without that, like even if it's a time thing, if you end up doing something that is weird or looks strange, and it goes out, what if now it now misaligns with what you're supposed to do, or what the product should be doing? So yeah, we should refer back to design.
All right, thank you very much today for the answer. Tomiwa, I hope this answered your question, Tomiwa. You can just give a thumbs up if it does, or you want to ask like follow-up questions.
Okay, let me give like a bit of more
Okay.
perspective. So yeah, I agree with you if it's like a really drastic change that impacts like the experience and you're building maybe like a new flow. But I'm asking for like maybe you're building something in the design, and then when you get into development, it can even be that there's even a simpler way of doing it. Maybe you don't have to collect as many fields or as much info. There's just a simpler way to do it, and you're not recreating anything. You're just using existing like elements that has been created just to just make that small update. So you're not introducing new icons, you're not introducing new elements. You're just kind of like doing like a small moving some of the elements around that have already been created. So I would defer to should it be that okay, you make the change, because it's something that the designer is basically going to do already. The designer has already given the design direction that he should follow. You are going to follow it. To you make the change on the design and then carry your designer along. That's what we had to do just quickly. And we just decided to remove this and this so that you'll be able to achieve this faster. Or it should always be the case that design must happen on Figma first before it goes to mobile. I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, so I would say that it has to happen on Figma first. I mean, you can make the change. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but like they have to be carried along. That's one. That communication is key. And then after that's done, I mean, they'll make the effect changes on Figma, and then you can continue what you're doing. The reason why I say this is because when the time comes, because when a design is done or when design is pushed to store, pushed to users, you always come back to make one change or something. And by the time you come back and you see, and maybe one person, the last person that worked on it has gone or has moved on to something else, there will be inconsistencies, and those inconsistencies can cause problems further down the line. So to make sure everything is as aligned as possible, always make sure that okay, um, we have this thing and we need to do it this way because it is faster or whatever the defense for it is. Take it to design first. They may have some pushback or they may not, depending on this situation. If they do, then of course you have to go back because there may be some context that you're also missing as well. But if you are sure that okay, we are 100% sure that this thing it can be done better this way, then you can make the change and then go to design. But the thing is that's let's say alignment between design and and code which has to be there. So there aren't like there's any confusion in the future when you have to come back to that thing and make any changes.
Right, thank you very much today. Tomorrow, I hope that answers the question. So we could, because I can see a lot of questions in the chat box. Then we also have Yusuf here. All right, awesome. Thank you very much, Tomorrow. So Yusuf, you can go ahead and ask your question now. Hi, Yusuf. Yusuf, are you still here with me? All right. So why Yusuf gets back, let me just follow up with the other questions in the chat. I'm not sure you'll be able to answer this today, but if you're not, I could just bring someone on this call that could also answer the question. So this person is asking, can a Scrum Master with PM background work in the Nigerian tech industry? Is that a question you think you can provide context to?
I mean, anybody can work anywhere as long as you have
Yeah.
the curiosity to work there. I mean, in Nigerian tech companies, I don't think there are like huge requirements for people to like understand things like Scrum or those very rigid um product development cycle styles. Um, and maybe if it's an older organization like the first banks and those older banks, or maybe like in McKinsey or something, maybe. But like if it's like a tech company like the Paystacks of Water Waves, I think they're a lot more flexible with how they execute things. Because from what I've places I've worked, we have tried all kinds of methods. We've done Scrum, done Agile, we've done different types of cycle lengths, like we've done 2 week sprints, we've done 1 week sprints, we've done 6 week sprints. End of the day, it's what works for like where the organization is at the time and what they need to like, how fast they need to work, how they need to execute that matters. The PM style doesn't really matter as long as you have relevant context and you're very curious.
Yes. I think I agree with you 100%. I feel it's what works for the organization at that point in time. And yes, if you have a Scrum Master with a PM background, I believe you can work in Nigerian tech industry. So
Yeah.
moving on to the next question. This person said, KG Magbel said, thank you for your time. I would like it if you could tell us, this is also like a question that is not relating to the topic. Tell us the main difference between a product owner, a product manager, and a project manager. Is that question you would be able to answer today?
Uh, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I have.
All right.
I'll say they're all titles. Um, they're all titles, and like a lot of the let's say the skills required they overlap.
Yeah.
Like a product owner and a product manager are usually like the same thing. Most times. Sometimes there's a product owner and then the product managers under the product owner. Um, And a project manager is usually someone that does just like the operational part of the product. Say, for example, if you're trying to launch in a new market and your job is just like tick some boxes, or when it comes to maybe hiring, finding people to hire for the role, following up with people to make sure they get things done, scheduling meetings, things like that. They may not really involve the strategic aspects. So the project managers are usually just people that just execute, but they may not really be involved in the strategy or thinking about the actual product itself or user experience or things like that. But yeah, if anyone has any more, can
Yes,
expand
so
on.
I would like to call Princess. Princess, can you hear me, please, to
Yeah,
provide
even
more context?
before he started replying, I wanted to
Yeah.
say I'm going to post some articles in the chat for later reading because we need to focus on the topic for today. And if we have
Mm,
more time, we'll come back to that question. So I'll just post an article for the person to quickly, go through and read. And let's focus on the design related questions because we don't have a lot of time.
yes.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Thank you very much, Princess. So Olamide asked, yeah, oh, should the designer own the user flow diagramming?
Yes, that's up to design. the PM can bring in, can suggest, can draw their own flows, but then designer will take that flow and then fix it into the current, let's say, information architecture. Because yeah, because I know the design actually has more context in how the experience will fit into like the entire thing. So the PM can do a flow. They should do a flow actually, not that, but like I don't say they're the owners, but like the important parts will definitely come from the PM, and then it's now up to design to take those elements and make them fit into or make them into a usable experience.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much today. Then Yusuf is asking, yeah, what would you advise when you have a final design for a product and the CEO wants a new feature in the design after design is already been implemented by developers? This feature is not in the PRD.
If that's basically your salary, answer them, please. Because yeah, there's this thing that I had
Hmm.
remember I've heard it, but it's called ODD, which stands for Organ Driven Development. So sometimes, a lot of the time, especially in smaller companies, even in larger companies, the CEO wants to step in with something they believe is high priority or super high priority, and well, you have to answer them. And like sometimes you have to answer them to show them it shouldn't have why they shouldn't have done it, because you will let them look at the thing as it goes from development and it goes live, and maybe it crashes and burns and you're like, okay, this is why we should follow the process. I have about experiences of that kind of thing happening and the thing actually works and is successful. um and there are times when it has happened and then it crashes and burns and then you're like, you look at them like, I told you so. So yeah, answer them, let, let them do it. So follow their instructions. By the end of the day, always make sure that you have at the back of your mind that if this thing doesn't work, you'd make it clear that this thing did not work because we didn't follow the process.
Awesome. Thank you very much today. I think Oyedika has a question and has been raised. So, Oyedika, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good evening, Tunde. Thanks for the presentation. Um, my question is like during the presentation, you mentioned that there's like a clear difference between good PMs that you've worked with and not so good ones. Question is just generally around what.
Hi, Oyedika, we can hear
Think I
you. Hi, Oyedika, can you hear me?
you lost him.
Yeah, I think so. So while we try to get Vedika back, I'll just run us through some things that we do. Hi everyone, if you are new to PIP webinar, welcome. This happens every second and last Thursday of the month. So we do this twice in a month, and there will still be another one before the end of June. And you would always get the notification on Slack or on our Instagram page, so you could register. We also have other events we do. Which happens every Tuesday, interchangeably. That's the group mentorship session and also the interview prep. So we get to talk to people about mentor people in groups, then also like prepare them for interviews. So we have like mock interviews, CV reviews on each of those calls. There are also questions. There are also events that you could register for on the Slack, and we also post them on our Instagram page. So if someone asked a question here quickly, because it's already 8 and we do not want to keep it too long on this call. So Kenny asked, what course do you recommend to be a product designer? So do you want to like
Mm,
recommend one or two?
I wouldn't say I have a course, because yeah, there isn't. I don't think there are any courses, and the good programmers that I know didn't are mostly self-taught and they learned on the job. Maybe it's like from my time because I learned product design a very long time ago. But I've heard good things about MDS. I've heard about ship nudge, but those things are paid. Um, and what else? Should that one again is there? Yeah, those are the ones I know of, like off the top of my head. But I would say as a designer, one of the best things you can do is find a mentor. It may not be someone that you have access to, but someone that you can reference when it comes to work. And you can also like directly email um senior designers in your space and try and get. So it won't be a thing that's I can speak from my experience. The people I mentor, but I don't like speak to them like every day, every week. What they do is they send me their work, and when I have time, I like review what they've done, and I give them feedback, and they go back and I treat and come back. I may speak to them maybe like once or twice a year, and eventually they become like full-fledged designers. So yeah, like there are different approaches you can take to it. You may go through a course, or you can learn by yourself, or you can find a mentor. That one works for you.
All right. Awesome. We are way past time, but Oyed, can you hear me now? So let's just take your question before we call it a night.
Hey, sorry, you guys didn't hear my question before. Sorry. So I was asking,
At all?
during the course of his presentation, yeah, he mentioned that he has worked with good PMs and not so good PMs, right? So I was asking, what's the difference between the good ones and the not so good ones? Was it like the artifacts that they created? Was it how they communicated? All are like the key highlights or things that you say, oh, if a PM does this thing like this guy makes my work great.
Okay, so I can say the PMs are not great. Let me start from the bad. The ones that are rigid, like they're not really open to change. One that say, okay, what everything my PRD is low. That's one. Two, if you are excessively verbose in how you communicate, like simple communication is very key. So I worked with someone, I mean, now they're a lot better, they've learned because they've grown over like a period of years. But like when when I first started working with them, they write very, very long PRDs, like it would be like an essay, a dissertation. And it's like, get to the point, like, I can't be spending 3 hours reading your PRD. Let's be simple. We know what we want to do here. You know, your PRD can be detailed and also simple. Um, so yeah, you need to write clearly and effectively. Um, and what else? Uh, communication styles. The PMs are okay that are struggle with accounts that don't know how to communicate well, like taking feedback and adding into their PRD and combining what they hear from the technical side, more technical side, which is like the devs and design, and combining everything into one, into the products. Like there's usually like so some of them lean more in one direction. Sometimes, most of the time, they lean towards the technical side. They make things more complicated than it needs to be. So yeah, if you're too technical, it's a problem. You have to, because the thing you are doing is not going to be used by developers. It's going to be used by people like you and me. So it needs to be able to like simplify things and then I'll say for the good people that understand design, that's number one. People that give you room to explore and like room to explore. And people that just have like an open door and like are open to feedback, open to like making changes, criticisms, understanding that okay, maybe this premise is faulty. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's try this again, things like that. So people that openly communicates, people that are also curious about what they're doing and not just want to execute because they've said let's do this thing. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much today, and I hope that answers your question, Ridika. All right. So thank you very much today for joining us today on today's session. I This for one was very insightful, and I learned a lot. I'm sure everybody here learned a lot also. But for one, please, I don't know if you have with us PM. I just wanted to put it out there, but then we do try our best. And from this, I'm sure we will take a lot of knowledge and apply it back in each of our individual jobs and do better at collaborating with product designers. And thank you for coming, and we do hope to see more of you going forward. And yes, I'll be in touch via email basically. Yes, and good night everyone, and do enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.
Bye. Thanks everyone.